So if this is your first week with us, we're like I said, we're in week 3 of our series on the Sermon on the Mount, and what we've seen so far is is John the Baptist get put in prison. Jesus comes on the scene announcing this kingdom, and he kind of left us in anticipation of what it would be, because it was already looking a little bit different than what people had expected. And last week we talked about that it was different. He meant for it to be different. He wasn't looking at these externals, but he was focusing the kingdom on what motivates us in our living. He focused the kingdom on our heart, and that it's a heart decision that we follow the King. That it's he is infinitely worthy to be followed no matter what. And Jesus is this week he's gonna double down on it. Is what I'm going to say. He's going to double down on that, and he's going to look at his disciples and now illustrate exactly what he was talking about. And I don't know if you've ever been at like one of those conferences, right? We were at Passion one year, and we were in, it's changed names so many times, I don't even know what the arena's called now, where the Atlanta Hawks play basketball. And we had 20,000 18 to 25-year-olds in this building. And we got to a point where he was asking some almost like survey type questions. And what we did was we actually took out our phones. It's like, if you respond to this, hold your light up. Right? And he'd ask a question, you see the light come up. And it'd go from pitch dark to now illuminated. For some reason, just these little flashlights that band together, all of a sudden, this cavernous room lights up where you begin to be able to make things out. And more, even as he talked through some of those pressing questions of depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, you see these lights come up, and people begin to understand that they're not alone, and that there is somebody with them. And it's a strong reminder that when we walk through this world as believers, how we walk matters, because we never know who needs to see what God has placed in us. That no matter the season, what motivates our heart is the kingdom. And as Jesus gets into this moment, right, as he has just come out of standing up here, giving us the Beatitudes, saying that blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom, and ending with, blessed are those who are persecuted for my name, for righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom. For those who have humbly submitted themselves to God and are understanding who they are apart from him, and they've laid it all down, and they're hungry and thirsty for righteousness. And that has transformed their heart to living out loud. Jesus begins to take some things that they would have been very familiar with and apply it to what it actually looks like. And I think he wants to do that for us today. He wants to use these pictures to drive home this point that the transforming power of the gospel is faithfully displayed as an open invitation to follow the King. Our life has a point, and the point is to draw others to Jesus, to draw them to the kingdom, and we do that, right? He says it right at the beginning, and we're not going to jump there just yet, but he starts with a "you are" twice. He leaves no room to say, you might be, you may be. He says, you are. Looking at his disciples going, the children of Israel were, but now you are. And as we get on this side of the cross, the church is. The believers in the body of the church are. What? And the only method for spreading the transforming power of the gospel. He calls us to be his faithful witnesses to a watching world. So we have to say, if we are charged, right? If we are charged with being a witness of the kingdom, Like the question has to be like, what, like, so how do we faithfully display the kingdom, right? Like, he's not gonna leave us in like, I'm charging you with displaying what I just like, and what he gave is massive. If we try to do it apart from him, it feels weighty, feels like we're unable to do it. It's unattainable because it's meant to be that way. It's meant to be him lighting the light, lighting everything inside of us. How do we faithfully display the kingdom today as believers? And Jesus uses these two pictures, and we're probably familiar with them: salt and light, to communicate it. Salt, something everybody would have had in their house. Light, everybody had at least a candle. They didn't have, like, you could flip on the light switch and poof, we got light. Like, they have candles that you would light, and it would give light into their little room that they call a house. Salt and light, to illustrate what it would be faithfully. So let's look at them. Two principles, right, of faithfully displaying the kingdom, and that I see in this passage, and it starts with this: is that the character of our lives and mission, must be shaped by the kingdom. The character of our lives and mission must be shaped by the kingdom. And I'm gonna segue for just a second. So he says, you are these things, and let your good works. So there's a missional aspect of our lives that we have to capture, but we have to start with the fact that it's the character of our lives and mission that must be shaped first. We can't work out until what has to work inside. We have to have the resources drawing from the grace and the power of the Holy Spirit made possible through salvation in Jesus. Because we're going to hit moments in life where we can't do it on our own, and we're meant to feel that fully, but then fall into the Father who shows up every time. So we see this as he starts into verse 13. He says, you are, right? You are the salt of the earth. Salt of the earth. But if the salt should lose its taste, how can it be made salty if it's no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled under feet? Let's stay there. Salt had, like, this is what we need to understand is, like, salt, we don't use salt probably in our everyday life as much as they did, right? Because we have this thing called a refrigerator. It's a beautiful thing. We put items in the refrigerator, and they stay cold, and they last. Maybe we put them in the freezer, and then they last even longer, right? But they wouldn't have had that. So salt had multiple uses in this time. And then the two main ones that most people focused on when we're looking at this passage that I think are most relevant, bless you, are these things, is that salt would purify and salt would preserve. Salt would purify and preserve. And like as I was thinking about this, like, we know it purifies because we've all, like, cut our finger and then got salt in the wound and it lit us on fire. We're like, ah! Salt was doing the work of purifying that injury. But in this case, we see that salt, they would use salt, they would rub it on meat, right, to kill the bacteria that would cause decay. Right? Rub it on rock salt. Some people still do this today if they're preserving, like, deer meat and stuff like that. Like, we're gonna prepare this to save it. We're gonna season it like that, right? So it would purify, it would kill the bacteria, right? But it also at the same time preserves. It keeps things from rotting away. And what got me thinking is, like, if we believe, catch this, if we believe that God has placed us together in this moment, right? In this season of life, like, we're here, we're not here by accident. God has actually orchestrated the fact that we are here in this moment. We trust his sovereignty and why he has us here, right? So if God has put us in placed us together in this moment, in this season, right, for the purpose of demonstrating his kingdom, right? That's the purpose of our life. He made that clear in the Beatitudes, right? Then we must allow him to rub us in the spheres of influences where he's placed us. You are the salt of the earth. The earth, the whole earth. But in your moment in time in Elizabeth City, you're called to be, as a believer, you're called to be the salt of Elizabeth City. Like your life, as God moves you about the city, moves you in and out of classes, moves you in and out of buildings and workplaces, and like you're called to be a salty presence. One that comes in just in how you're living your life. Like this would have reminded, right, the Jewish people that has been written to, like every sacrifice was salted with salt as a sign of purity, as a sign of that covenant. Like it's sprinkled on top. So like faith, belief in God, belief in Jesus should salt our life in such a way that the impurities of our life begin to be melted away, begin to be fought back. How we live is shaped by the kingdom. The daily decisions we make begin to be impacted. How we go about, I'm going to give you 4 buckets that you hear me say it a lot. Time, talent, treasures, testimony. That pretty much encompasses all of our life. Like each is to be salted in such a way where the first question is Matthew 6, seek first the kingdom. How do I seek first the kingdom? With my time, my talents, my treasures, and my testimony. How do I give God, as going to Old Testament, how do I give him my best first? I'm prioritizing these things. And you see what God, when that happens in a personal life, when we allow the Beatitudes now to, if that's the goal and it only happens through God, it's like, how does my life stack up against that? And it's not to beat us down. It's to encourage us that Jesus has already provided the means to do it if we would just repent and turn. Repent and follow. Not just turn and stand still, but we actually have to follow what he says. He salts our life, he purifies it, and he preserves that character. He makes it appetizing in some ways to people that would come in contact. Have you ever ate a meal that was supposed to have salt and didn't have salt in it? What was your reaction? I like Deja's face. She's like, ugh. Because I would do this. It's like if you're from the deep south and you go up north where sweet tea does not exist. I heard the deep sighs because you've been there. If you're used to unsweet tea, it's not really going to bother you. But like the first taste, you're like, oh, that was supposed to be something completely different. You see, when we don't allow, and we don't cultivate a relationship with God and Jesus where he is able to challenge these aspects of our life with his words by the power of his Spirit, what we get is a hollow Christianity. We get the facade without the inside, the motivation, without the heart. And Jesus, we're going to see in the book of, if you read through the book of Matthew, Jesus comes out the strongest against those things. He looks at the righteous people. We're going to see it next week. Against the righteousness of the day would have been the Pharisees. And he goes, your righteousness has got to exceed theirs, which on the outside looks increasingly harder and harder because they do everything right except give their heart. They do it to be seen, not out of devotion. They do it to be thought of, not because they're in love with the King. So he wants to salt our life. He wants to give people in proximity to us a taste of the kingdom through what he has done in our life and doing in our life. But that's also a call. You are the salt of the earth. There is an anticipation that we will interact with the things of this world in a way that purifies what sin has broken. There's nothing that's a bigger testimony to relationships than a marriage that is wrapped around Christ. Because what happens? We see the self-sacrificial love. We see the forgiveness. We see the grace. We see the hard work. We see the things that God calls us to. And what happens is people that are looking at relationships are coming into it because that's how it ought to be. Remember, we talked about with the kingdom. Sometimes it's that sense of it ought not be this way. And the fact that we feel the ought not be this way is one of the biggest draws to know that there is a God, there is a creator, and there is a way that things should be. And we're meant to move saltily into these spaces. Work-life balance, retirement, parenting. It's those things where we're supposed to move into it. And we can't say this. John Stott, I love what John Stott says, and I think you hear this echoing in culture a lot, especially from the religious side, is where he says, one can hardly blame unsalted meat for going bad. It cannot do anything else. The real question is to ask this: where is the salt? Why do we look at the world who is doing worldly things and say, why are you doing that? When the real question is, how am I interacting with it in such a way that I'm pointing them to the way things should be? Am I being salt in this space, or do I just look like everything else? There's a tension that it creates in our life for purity and righteousness. The character of our lives, like if we've lost, you see it there, if we've lost our taste, like if people have come in close, it's that idea of a good fruit tree getting bad fruit. It shouldn't be that way. Like if somebody comes in close, you expected to pick up this drink and sip, and it's, oh, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Like if somebody comes into our life and they're expecting a salty meal and got unsalted food, they're not coming back. I would argue that may be the biggest issue in the church today is people know how we should taste, but they're getting a bitter taste in their mouth. We're meant to hold up truth and grace together. And we see two camps. We see the truth camp and the grace camp, but we need to bring them together in our lives as we interact and relate with people. Salt has got to keep its taste. Don't blame people who are lost for acting lost. Instead, why don't you step in close? Get to know them. We were talking about it in group the other week. Start to understand the why of what they do every week. Why do you act? Why do you live? What do you get from that? Just being open for a conversation. Don't ask why they do that. Or don't ask or condemn them for doing what they should be expected to do. If they don't know Jesus, I can't expect them to live like that. Second principle that we see is he uses light, and he said, and it's this, is that our life should openly reflect the light of the gospel every day. How you live, how you function, what you do should reflect who you follow. Like this, when Jesus broke on the scene, if you think back to chapter 4, and it says, I see it in verse 15 right here on this page. It says, you're not going to have this, Colin, but it says, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali along the road by the sea beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people who live in darkness have seen a great light. For those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. And what he's doing is quoting this. He's quoting Isaiah 9, and he's applying it to Jesus. Jesus is coming on the scene, and he's saying, this is me. So when he says in verse 14, you are the light of the world, the one who was light now commands his people to be light. We are an extension of that light. So Charles Quarles, he says when the Jewish person looks at this, and specifically in Isaiah, which is what we've seen quoted many times, he says this. He says that throughout Isaiah, right, we have this a couple slides. Throughout Isaiah, the shining light, right, is a metaphor of the Messiah and his people fulfilling the missionary purpose of manifesting the glory of God among the nations. That's a mouthful, I know. Conlon, flick over a couple slides. Throughout Isaiah, the shining light, like so when we see light in Isaiah, is a metaphor, right, of the Messiah. So they would have recognized, when he said the light has come, they would have recognized the light, hold up. Whoa. And his people, but it's fulfilling the missionary purpose of manifesting God's glory, not just to the Jewish people, but to the nations. Like, you are the light of the world, not just my own little people, my own little friends, my own little group, my own little slice. You are the light of the world, which gives us a sense that everywhere you go, you're made to shine. But not for yourself, not for your platform, not for your glory, but it's so that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. He gives us the aim, right? So we are an extension of Jesus' original ministry. From there to the disciples, to the church, to what we are part of now, we are meant to take that light into those spaces we just talked about where he's already placed us. We're not to get lost in thinking ahead to where we will be. Let tomorrow worry about itself, right? We get so caught up sometimes in thinking about when I get here, when I get this, when I do, like that we miss the urgency of now that we talked about last week. There's an urgent moment that is happening in this 24 hours, in this minute, in this hour of this day, that people need to see the glory of God reflecting off of your heart into your life and how you interact with the world. And with each day that passes, that urgency has to be more and more fierce. And the only way that happens is if we're cultivating an atmosphere where the light of Christ is resonating in our soul. That's the only way that this happens. Like, we are that light. And I love when we get into verse 15, it says, no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, but rather on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house, right? You don't take a lamp in your house, turn it on, or go, Alexa, turn on the light, right? And then put a blanket over it. Makes no sense, right? Like if I lit this candle, I told Morgan, I said, I told you to bring a candle, didn't tell you to bring a lighter. Good job, Andrew. If I lit this candle, I don't know if you've ever done this. If I lit this candle and then put this lid on, what's going to happen? One at a time. The light's going to go out. Why is that? It's going to suffocate. I like that word. It's going to suffocate it. Right? It's going to suffocate it. Fire takes a spark, right? Fuel, right? There's one more, I can't remember it, but, oxygen, yeah. I lumped oxygen into that as what happened. So fire, fuel, and oxygen, right? When I put a top on this, I take all the oxygen out of the room pretty quickly because the fire's going to burn through it, right? Flame goes out. I'm pretty convinced that this is what happens in our spiritual life. When we refuse, either willfully or unwillfully, willfully or ignorantly, refuse to share that light. Refuse to live that light. Refuse to let that light shine. Jesus lights this fire in us, and we're trying to manage it. We're like, I can let it shine here, but no, not over here, not over here. Like, And what happens in the process of keeping this light, we wonder why those flames never brighten. We wonder why it doesn't become an all-consuming fire. It's because we won't actually share the light we were meant to share. Like even as I open this right now, like I can smell this. But if I lit the fire, the scent that comes out of this is going to fill the whole room. And see, we're so busy like trying to prioritize the things that we want to do, the things we want in our life, and God kind of gets that second best kind of what we have left over. And we wonder why the essence of Him is not filling the room where we go. Why is it not filling my workspace? Why is it not filling my relationship? Why is it not filling my finances, my retirement, my community? Where He's placed me. Why is it not emanating out more? And it's because we're choking off the fuel. We're trying to sit on the fence and shine it in places that don't cost us much and hide it a little bit where it costs us everything. But what Jesus has made clear is that the kingdom will cost you everything even though it's free. Because that's what it means to seek first the kingdom. It's to say no first and foremost to these things and yes to the King. Because then He gives us back. We talked about it last week. Then He gives us back the things, the desires of our heart, but they're in right order underneath of Him. It's how I process, where do you want me to go? It's how I process my work-life balance, the boundaries that I set. It's how I process chasing and pursuing relationships. It's how I process, God, where do you want me to work? How do you want me to live? How do you want me to talk to this person? Do you want me to stand in the longest line at Walmart so that there's more opportunity to talk to people? There's a friend of mine in Greensboro, he's like, his goal is to have a gospel conversation every day for 365 days. So he's like, I'm going to make the choice to stand in the longest line at Walmart because that gives me more time. You see how when we are intentionally trying to shine our light, how it naturally drives us to think about what God would have us do in different moments. And it's probably more of a supernatural because we're constantly thinking, we're constantly praying, we're constantly doing the things He reminds us to do in His Word. That light is now bouncing side to side off of mirror and getting stronger and stronger. It's more like a magnifying glass. You shine light through a magnifying glass, and what happens on the other end when you focus it? Colin goes, it creates fire. Yes. It does. I think of Toy Story. Through Buzz's helmet, he focuses it on the wick, and we have fire. Like, that's what God wants to do with us. And like here's how we hide the light real quickly. We prioritize things ahead of time with God. We regularly engage in a lifestyle that is counter to the kingdom. We are not consistently committed to a body of believers who can hold us accountable. And what you hear in that is the devil drawing us into isolation. Drawing us out of people that love us and want to walk with us. And his biggest lie is they don't really care that way. They don't love you. They only love what you can do. But that's not true. And God doesn't think that way either. I only need you because of what you can do for me. He doesn't need you to do anything for Him. It's Him that actually enables you to do the things He's called you to do. Go to Ephesians chapter 2 where He says, the works I have prepared for you by grace through faith. Right? And this is what we see. So out of this, right, it is our goal and our role as witnesses of the kingdom to live righteously and boldly proclaim the King's message. Like, we have to actively work not to hide the light. We have to take the basket off, take the lid off the candle, and let everybody that is in the sphere of your influence see the light of Jesus in you. Michael Goheen said, he's like, we are an outward-facing mirror. The mirror does not create the light, just like we don't create Grace and mercy, we are conduits of it. We talked about last week. Like, we are the mirror. God shines through us. So our job is to turn the mirror to God. Because people will see what we're focused on. The city set on a hill, right? I don't know if you've ever seen a city that's like that. Like, you're actually going up to it. Jerusalem would have been set up high. It's not a matter of if you'll see the light. You see it from miles around. It doesn't have a choice. It can't hide. You can't hide. I can't hide. People will see what I am reflecting. And he gives us, listen, he loves us too much not to call us back to our purpose of reflecting him. It's okay. And I know what we hear. I know what we hear in this is that Jesus is coming right out of this time, right, where he's like, persecution's going to come. And we talked about last week, right? There's this, you can't be persecuted for something if you don't already look different. And the overriding assumption already in this salt and light is that something is different about the people of God. How they interact with the issues of life are different. Like, it's a different feel, it's a different taste, it's a different look. So in the same way, let your light shine before others. Because you're different, called to be different, let that light shine. Let the salvation of Jesus shine forward in that. So questions real quickly, not our reflection questions, but just general questions, right? So if it's God's light reflecting through us that draws people to him, how are you able to live like that in this season? Like, what does that look like? What would that demand of you? What would it cost you? How could you respond like that when they hurt you? How did you forgive that person, those friends, those people? These are questions people are asking of you because what you're doing doesn't make sense. Why did you make that decision? Like, from my perspective, that doesn't make sense. But you did it, and you did it in peace and cover. Like, I think back, I've shared it many times. Like, in the early 2012, 2013, I came out of a broken engagement. A month before I was to get married the first time, we broke it off. And Morgan's heard this story several times, so it's not a surprise to her. But here's the thing. I went to a wedding 3 weeks after I was supposed to get married. And some friends of mine go, "How are you doing?" I said, "Honestly, I'm great. I have complete peace, complete shalom. Because I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I don't understand everything else, but I know that to be true. So if that's true, God will make clear the rest at some point if he chooses to." And he did. And it's like, and when he does, it's like, "God, you have way better vision than I do, and I'm just going to leave it at that." Like, how did you make this decision? Why are you not falling apart? What brought healing in your life from that hurt? It's not the good things that tend to make people go, what's going on over there? It's literally how we're struggling through the everyday of living for God that tends to make people go, what in the world are you doing? Because that, honestly, is what their heart's going, I want that. I want that kind of peace. I want that kind of strength. I want that kind of joy. I want that kind of love. I want that kind of grace and mercy and forgiveness. I want what you have. Tell me about it. And we get to that point of the verse, right? So that they may see your good works. Because of this, they see your good works, the things you're living out loud. Not for the glory of man, but for the glory of God. And they give glory to your Father in heaven. Right? The statistics on depression, anxiety, marriage, social media consumption, and more, right? They're testifying to a need today for a light of hope. I mean, 6 out of 10 are dealing with some sort of generalized anxiety disorder. I didn't do math on the room, but I'm just going to bet that's at least 4 or 5 people in here. That's not talking about anything more significant. You see, people are looking for the light of salvation found in Jesus, right? And it's the call of Christ on your life and mine to let that light shine and to let it shine bright. None of this. It's to take this, to allow God to light it. And everywhere you go, you're taking the aroma of his grace and mercy into that space. Right? It's the transforming power of the gospel. Right? Like it's faithfully displayed as an open invitation to follow the King. They see the good works and they go, I want to be with that guy.